right, so listen, just to be clear, we cannot show any guns or firearms or weapons on the screen. We can talk about them, we cannot show anything.
No problem.
Right, get that out of the way. Listen, you know, I'm kind of jovial and laughing, but I wish that we were here discussing something that wasn't so grim, you know? Let me do this. First, I don't think you've been here with us before. You and I have known each other for quite a few years. And, you know, one of the reasons I thought about you today is I still have a lot of fond memories of the shooting range, man.
Oh, yeah. It was great.
When I was shooting in Vegas. Yeah. Let's do this. Tell them a little bit about, you know, who you are and, you know, what you're about. I'm going to tell everybody to do this. I'm going to tell everybody to follow you on Instagram, too.
Oh, sweet. Hell yeah. Let's do it. All right.
So introduce yourself.
My name is Jesse Pulido Cervantes. Born and raised right here in bright and beautiful Las Vegas. And yeah, you know, I feel that I've embraced the American culture as much as I can being here, you know, and there's things that I'm passionate about and things that I really do love and enjoy. You know, my lifestyle caters a lot to the hot rod scene, the rock and roll scene, all that kind of stuff. And also I do also embody a lot of that, the rustic kind of cowboy fantasy that people have of America. And it's wonderful. It's a beautiful thing. You know, I enjoy, I have plenty of hobbies that I enjoy doing. I build furniture on the side. I sing for a band every now and then. And I ride motorcycles. I love
Bullshit. Every now and then. Wait. Every now and then you sing?
Well, I sing karaoke all the time, but every now and then we'll get a gig and we'll play a show. And it's not an extraordinary amount of money, but it's fun and I enjoy it.
So yeah, man, we haven't been face to face in a while, but I'm glad you did get to come and hang out with me out here in Brazil. You got to come back, man.
No, believe me, I'm working on it, man. Right now, it's just I'm making my own little moves here too, man. I'm own a house. I'm getting ready to buy my second house, and you know, I'm chasing my little slice of pie. You know, I'm trying to get it.
You know, today we had the 7th shooting in the United States in 7 days. Like well, of course, that's a grim statistic. That's never happened before, and it's only getting worse. It's only getting more and more common. Like, if you Google it, the Colorado attack is the 7th mass shooting in 7 days in the United States. You know, we just had, here's the thing, we can't even count the number of people that have been killed and get to the end of that list before more have been added. We can't even, you know, and I'm one of those people, I'm not trying to make anybody who's a shooter popular, so we're not going to say the names of anybody who's done any of these things. What we can do is talk about the greater issue, because I'm like this. It's been pointed out to me and what some of my friends have said. Do you remember Sandy Hook shooting?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Children got murdered. If we didn't start to talk about the Constitution then, it's not going to happen. Why are we still pretending? Like, why is America pretending like at some point this is going to change? Like, why are we still even acting like, because my solution, you know my solution. You know, I believe there are 3 ways to deal with a place you don't like. You either bend the knee like Game of Thrones, you fight the authorities, which is only going to get you killed, or you pack up your junk and you go.
Yep.
You know, I don't even know why America is pretending. Like, I believe we're always outraged, but we're no longer surprised. Like, how many guns do you think there are per capita in the United States?
There's more guns than there are people, that's for sure. For sure.
Boy, but much. What do you think happened? Let's just say, first of all, like, I'm sure you know this. You know we can't change the law on guns. We know that, right? Because the guns aren't by your local law, they're constitutional.
Yeah.
I don't think enough Americans realize that. Have you read the Second Amendment?
I'll be completely honest with you. I have not, man. I've never really felt the need to.
Really?
To be honest with you, to be frank, I'm happy and blessed to enjoy the freedoms that this country gives me to enjoy, and I'm good with it. I think that situations like what's happening with these shootings, I think that sometimes it's a refusal to accept the truth that we live in a world of ever-present danger and it never goes away. And I think it's foolish for somebody to sit there and say that we can have a place where that will never ever happen. It's a lie, in my opinion, because that's not the reality of the world. The physical world that we live in, it's a dangerous place, and it will always be a dangerous place.
By the
But
way,
then that's my opinion because I come from a background of ever-present danger, you know, and
what do
it's
you mean,
something.
wait, back up. A background of ever-present danger. Expand on that.
My heritage, the way that I was brought up, some people would say it's a hard life. To me, it's normal, you know. But it's something that's always been apparent. Some of my family, they've been outlaws and they continue to be outlaws to this day, and that's the way that they live. And they work with what they got, and they have to protect themselves, and they do anything that they can to protect themselves because they're faced with that harsh reality of danger being there always.
But we're talking about outlaws. I'm talking about regular guys like you and me who have jobs, you know?
Oh, yeah. But there's still a never-present danger, man. People get killed sitting at a bus stop waiting for it, you know?
But we're not talking about those situations. Like, we're talking about the ever-present danger of the United States having so many firearms in such an unregulated manner that we've got people running into every place from supermarkets to schools.
Yeah.
You know? Hold on. LK said something I don't quite understand. You mean the MSM, which is disconnected from we, they have their own agenda. I don't want to assume what you mean by MSM, so can you explain that to us? And D-Nice, I hope you're having a great night. Thanks for showing up. So it's like, wait, whoa. Ow, freedom from versus freedom from. Freedom to versus freedom from. And that's a big distinction. Because my whole thing is this. I think we need to stop pretending that gun violence in America is going to stop and start deciding how are we going to handle it. Stop every lawmaker from saying, oh, I'm going to do something about gun violence when you can't. It's in the Constitution. Is America going to have a serious conversation about the Constitution? Do you really think that's going to happen?
I mean, ultimately, I think they could push whatever they want to push through. I don't think it'll ever stop.
Ever is a big word. Why?
Why? Because people are going to be out there doing what they feel they need to do. And for people that are blessed to have a good, stable job and they don't have to resort to that, we're always going to have it good, man. A lot of people don't. And they're willing and they're desperate and they're willing to do whatever they need to do to make it. And that's the reality. And it's unfortunate that you have people that are troubled, that are, you know, messed up in the head, that are in these places that they put themselves in. I consider myself a very compassionate person. Unfortunately, I feel that people need to be deserving of my compassion. And it's very hard for me to have compassion for somebody that put themselves in a situation to the point where their instability was turned up so high that they feel that they need the pain that they're feeling, they need to inflict it on everybody else. And it's a terrible thing. And how can you fix that? How can you fix these people that are fucked up? Unfortunately, even through therapy doesn't work unless the willingness to have it work needs to be there. If it isn't there, it'll never work. It's just like an alcoholic that doesn't ever feel like they want to stop drinking will never stop drinking. It needs to come from within. That choice needs to come from those people.
Al said because they know what they are and what freedom is, you'll never be able to take it away, even if you make it illegal. I looked up guns in the United States, and one of the studies that was done for 2021, and I just put the link there, it actually said, according to a small arms survey, now a small arm, for people who don't know, roughly speaking, you have long guns, which are rifles, You would have shotguns, which I would classify differently from rifles. And then you have small arms, which are considered pistols, derringers. According to 2017, the United States had a population size of 326,474,000 people. There were about 393 million firearms in the United States. That means there were more guns than there are people.
Oh, yeah.
Additionally, given that not every person in the U.S. owns a gun, many people own multiple or many. This fact still rings true, with only the major difference being the United States population and the number of guns in the nation has grown in size. Wow. So now we're in an awkward situation in the United States where if the Constitution was amended, what's going to happen? What are they going to say? Are they going to say, well, we're going to amend the Constitution to peel back these things? Do you really think that it would make a difference in the United States? Do you think people would give up their weapons?
I think some will. I think some people won't. And we know everybody knows who's not gonna care. You know, the people that don't care, the people that have done whatever they needed to obtain a gun, be it legal or not, and they want it bad enough, they ain't gonna give it up.
Worldly Traveler checking in from Mexico City. I think he's fluent in Spanish too, so.
Mucho gusto.
Well, hello there, Owl.
Oh, hello, Noy. Hello. I hadn't planned on joining this chat, but I listened to 11 minutes, and as usual, I got roped in. So decided I'd pop in and share some words of wisdom or annoyance, depending on the matter.
It really is a pleasure to see you. It really is.
It's a good thing to see. It's good to see you too. We haven't talked in a minute.
It's been a while. No.
It's been a minute.
Wow. And it's great to see Reigning Woman, even though her name is spelled a little weird. What we were looking at was I believe that America has to simply become comfortable with gun violence because we're not in a situation to effectively do anything to stunt it. We hear politicians all the time talking about changing laws because they know the average American doesn't even know it's not a local law with your guns. It's a federally protected constitutional right. So if we're not even willing to talk about amending the Constitution, why are they talking about things going to change? Why does every politician on both sides, conservative, liberal, come on and say, hey, we're going to do something about guns? And what are they going to do? Why aren't they telling people this is a real thing? You're going to need to figure out a way to redefine your life as an American in light of guns. What made you decide to pop on?
Huh?
What made you decide to pop on?
So you were discussing this very similar, the same topic just a few minutes ago, and I posted in the comments about freedom to versus freedom from, and that actually comes from a quote from the book that I'm wearing, A Handmaid's Tale. So it's appropriate to the topic. A little background so people know where I'm coming from. I am a gun owner. I am licensed. I am registered. I'm also a certified sharpshooter, which means that I can hit what I'm aiming at 95% of the time from multiple distances. I also have a hunting background, and I'm also pro logical gun regulation. So
whoa. Logical? That's a word that people can, everybody can play with that word.
That's a whole video on its own, so we're going to be careful with all that. But I posted in the comments earlier.
Logic is different that's a very subjective way to say that.
Yeah.
It is a very subjective way to say it, and I'm going to be very careful with my words because I don't need a mob showing up on my doorstep. But I posted in the comments. I didn't hear you because I'm too busy talking. Did you say that again?
I'm sure you'll be able to handle yourself just fine.
I'm sure I would, but I don't really want to put that to the test, so let's not.
No, of course. It should never come down to that. But unfortunately, that's the reality of the world that we live in general. So, doesn't matter what country you're in.
Absolutely. And the comment that I made earlier, the freedom to versus freedom from. We have the freedom to and the right to own, to bear arms, to own firearms, to own weapons. and there is legislation around that depending on what state you're in. Unfortunately, freedom to own guns doesn't mean your freedom from the consequences of owning those guns. When you allow, people are stupid. Persons can be intelligent and responsible, but people collectively are stupid. And I do not personally trust a population to have something that can be as destructive as firearms. They are dangerous. The purpose of a gun is to take a life. Whether it's a life from a human or a life from an animal, that is in fact what that is designed for. And the freedom to own a weapon means that you no longer have the freedom from the consequences of that. When you put people in a densely populated situation, you don't take care of mental health, and you give them a weapon that has the ability to take multiple lives very, very quickly, it's a consequence of that action. It's the same, in a similar way, it's the same thing that happens when you lower the drinking age. If you allow 18-year-olds to drink, you're gonna have a lot of drunk teenagers. It's freedom to versus freedom from. We have the freedom to own a gun. Because of that, we no longer have the freedom from gun violence.
Yep.
That was a lot.
No, I get it. It makes perfect sense. You know, but at the end of the day, I don't know. It's just, I keep feeling like this. People deny that. They want to deny the fact that we live in a dangerous place. You know, and we're blessed by having the opportunity to protect ourselves any way that we can with the weapon that will make it a lot easier for you to protect yourself or your family, whoever you're with. And I think that's why it's there. That's why it's there, because the people that founded this country understood that it was a necessary evil. And we have to engage with this evil of this world that we live in. We're forced to. For somebody to sit there and say that there's a place that you can go on this planet where you will never, ever, ever have to worry about any kind of danger or violence, it's a lie. Unless you're the only.
That's true. There's nowhere you're going to live where you're not going to have violence. And the violence changes depending on where you're at. In Brazil, firearms have only become recently available to the general public. So we're starting to see an increase in gun violence outside of the favelas, outside of gangster-run neighborhoods. But before that, the kind of crime that you saw was what was available to the public, what was available to them. But violence and evil it exists everywhere in every country. There's no way out of that. The difference is the access to killing someone instantly versus beating them to death with your hands. I mean, that evil has always been there. That's just, I mean, that unfortunately is the reality. Like you said, to pretend that we don't live in a dangerous place, and unfortunately, guns are the access to that violence. It is unfortunate, but that is a reality.
You know, it's just turned up a lot more here because of how easy it is, and
right.
People take advantage of that freedom. You know.
Here's my thing, though. I have lived all over the world, as you all know. I've lived in about 15 countries, generally about 2 years each country. For the record, make sure everybody like, share, and subscribe. That's how this channel keeps floating. I'm so proud that we actually hit our 2K mark a couple weeks ago, and we've been growing from there. By making sure you like it and share it someplace and comment, it's why we get to have these great discussions. And we talk about three things here. We largely talk about social issues like this, but we also talk about my favorite subject, which is money. And we also talk about world travel. But I've lived all over the world. There are crazy people everywhere. The difference is in China, and you lived in China, when someone goes crazy in China, they take a knife and go on a stabbing spree and stab 3 people before the police club them to the ground. And 2 of them, the people they stab, will live. In Japan, I've seen nut jobs in Japan decide, I'm going to kill some people. I'm going to take this big forbidden sword and I'm going to run downtown, and maybe they cut 1 or 2 people and then the police club them unconscious. Because the reality is you might not be able to take away the number of crazies there are in the world in any given country, but you can slow down how much damage they can do. And as someone who, you know, for the record, everybody here knows I was a gun owner. And a lot of people don't know this. I had a private license to carry. And I had something explained to me once that meant a lot to me, and I explained it. I understood it on different levels. Do both of you remember making leather Halloween masks?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Vividly, my hands still hurt.
Well, do you remember the old gunner that ran the leather shop? He told me something once, because he was a he had a lot of really, really nice guns that he made a lot of people angry with because he would go out and shoot them instead of putting them on a wall or selling them to a museum. Well, he said you should always be surprised when you need a gun. What that means is, I call it the surprise gun theory. He said, if you're someplace that you know is dangerous, you should leave. If someone invites you to go someplace where you feel like you might need a gun, if somebody invites you to a place where you might need a gun, don't go. Yeah. Your gun should be something that happens when you least expect it. You shouldn't be anywhere where you think to yourself, I need a gun. The gun should always be a surprise. It should always be a situation where you say, oh my goodness, I was actually eating some ice cream and then something crazy happened and I had to pull my gun out. But anytime you have to go someplace and understand that you might need a gun, you shouldn't be there. It should be a surprise to the other guy as well. The other guy in a situation where you might need a gun should look at you and say, oh my goodness, who keeps a gun in their underwear while they're eating ice cream on the beach? Because he's gonna look at you and think, you're totally unprepared. But then I had to take that to a different level and I thought, why do I wanna live in a country where the possibility of me being shot or having to shoot someone is much higher?
Yep.
You know, that's. Oh, Raining Woman made a great point. Thank you for pointing this out. You know, I have a Patreon, and this is where we do a lot of private discussions here on Patreon. Patreon is where we talk about a lot of the serious business issues, money issues. It's a private group of people. Patreon is not as much fun as YouTube. I'll tell you that right now. This is where we talk about a lot of the more serious issues for gaining wealth, talking about business negotiations, doing business with each other. It would be a mastermind group of sorts. I encourage everybody to at least take a look, read it. I'm not going to read through everything here, but it's something that has been growing, and I'm glad to be proud to offer that to so many people. Brent asked a really good question. He said, I would say a more direct question related to guns is why is the normalization of abnormal behavior condoned a root cause of gun violence?
That's a social issue. You know, that's a social issue because at the end of the day, it's people's behavior. You know, if we're going to condone mental instability, if we're going to try to normalize things that we clearly know are a problem, like we're going in the wrong direction, man. I truly believe that the biggest evil in this world is a denial of truth, but yet we sit here and deny it. Politicians will sit there and deny it straight to our faces, you know, and are you good with that? If you're good with it, you're good with it. If you're not, you're not. But that's how you choose to live your life. You know what I mean? Because we all have that freedom and we all should.
I kind of want to expand on what Brent Allen said in the comments with the why is normalization of abnormal behavior condoned? And I would actually go on a little bit further, and I think that this absolutely could be brought down to misunderstanding mental illness. And I talk a lot on my channel about having depression, having anxiety, and an eating disorder, and overcoming that. I openly talk about going to therapy and dealing with chronic depression. So I'm a huge advocate for mental illness. And I think that a lot of why it's condoned is not because we accept it, it's because we don't understand it. So we kind of just erase this behavior as, well, he just has a mental issue, because we don't want to talk about it. We don't want to talk about mental illness in the world, but it's particularly in the United States. You know, we shame people who openly say they have a mental illness. We don't openly promote mental therapy. I mean, when you're sick, you go to the doctor, but we never promote therapy the same way. We don't talk about psychological disorders and mental. It's fun to be talking about this while watching myself barbell row up there. You know, we don't advocate for mental health. And so when someone acts from a mental illness, because we don't understand it or we don't want to take some kind of responsibility for it, we kind of just say, well, he was having a bad day, as was one of the excuses for the Massage Envy shooting. Yeah, he was having a bad day.
No, tell them, give them what you're talking about. Explain that to them, because there might be people watching who don't know.
To be honest, I've only seen the Instagram highlights. I've only read a couple of articles, but there was, I believe it was 6 Asian women were killed in a massage envy with another. Was it 8 women? I thought it was only 6 women, but 8 women. Okay, I'm sorry. Like I said, I only read a couple of Instagram reels, and I read just 1 or 2 articles. And most of the highlights where the excuse was for this man acting out his racial anger towards these Asian women. He shot them and killed them. And the excuse was he was having a bad day. That was the overall theme. Now, I'm going to admit I don't have a lot of details because I only saw it. And I'm personally in a place where I'm trying not to dive too much into the depressive situation that is, thank you. The depressiveness that is in the United States media at the moment. So I'll admit that I don't have all of the details, but this was another shooting that happened within the last week, I want to say. That's why if you are not up to date and you're on social media, you'll see a lot of Stop Asian Hate posts that are going around. That's in support of what happened. Asian is not a virus. Racism is another example of the viral posts that are going around. It's in response to this shooting that happened at a massage envy in the US. I'm not even sure where it was. I'm going to be perfectly honest.
So get this. Raymond Woman said that for a long time, America or society creates monsters and then takes no responsibility for the monster they created. Some people believe that the United States creates more psychopaths and sociopaths than any other country. I would like to believe that the United States might not create more. They simply have more vehicles for those people to not get the help they need, for one, because so many other places have, and this is an issue we've talked about many times traveling the world, that comprehensive healthcare that means maybe you're identified and given either the counseling or the medicine or combination that you need early enough in life so that you don't slip over the edge. Or the United States is this uniquely evil place that condones murder. And I'll tell you my experience traveling the world. Violence is everywhere. People do kill each other in everywhere I've ever been. The difference is this. When I travel to other countries, people have killed each other over religious oppression, over political activism of sorts, terrorism even, because they want their cause to be noticed. The United States is the only place I've ever known where people will just walk into a children's daycare, a massage place, a supermarket, and just start murdering people for no reason at all. Other people that I've seen in other countries where men have been killed, it was, and I hate to use this explanation, but it was quote unquote for a reason. You may have guys in illegal businesses together killing one another. You might have people saying, I'm gonna fight for this political cause, pro or against government, or this political or religious cause, pro or against government. You don't have people saying, I think I'm just gonna have some people go in and shoot some children or just shoot a bunch of women. And quite frankly, in a lot of those organizations, if you were to walk into a place and shoot a room full of women, your organization would lose all credit and ability anyway.
We had a situation, just on that thought, we had a situation, it was a couple of years ago in the school that I was in, where there was a shooting near the favela that was near the school. And one of the things that went around was that because children were in danger of adult business, you can tell by the climate and people that lived in the favelas that they were like, oh, don't worry, we don't need the police, that's being taken care of. Because there's a code among criminals, gangsters, I don't have a good word for this, where the thing is like adults are adults, you deal with adults, you don't touch children. That kind of
vague code of honor, I guess is what you would say.
A code of honor, like, yeah, if you wanted to say that there is in fact a code of honor.
The U.S. has a freedom to show the world our warts. So are you proposing, Uncle Ladrunius, that these things happen in other places, but even I would have 100% agreed with you 10 years ago. Right now with social media, I don't know that you can hide your warts anymore.
No, this is true.
Ooh, what did he say? Ironically enough, mass shootings appear to be first world issues.
Well, in a third world, they call genocide.
He's saying that maybe we have so many not real problems that we can just create extra monsters, where in other places in the world, they're worried about shit that's important.
I would argue that might have a lot to do with that.
I could see that a little bit because we have it so good here. We have it so good here, and I'll tell you what, man. A lot of people, they don't know what it means to suffer. They really don't. They really don't. They think they're a badass. They think they're a hard man until they really meet one day. And guess what happens? Reality slaps them across the face.
I, in my entire life in the United States, was only in one situation where I thought a firearm would be necessary, and I was able to stop that from being necessary because around my house I had motion detective lights, so the lights would just come on. Someone had come over the backyard into my patio, past the swimming pool, and as soon as the lights came up, I heard them scurry away. But when I heard the lights come up, I immediately grabbed my weapon and hid in the closet. And for those of you who don't know, when you start learning, home defense and shooting, it's not like the movies. The first thing they teach you is hide. Leave your wallet and television out there. Hope they just steal it and leave. Hide so that the worst possible thing that can happen is you lose some stuff. Find the safest place you can, hide there with your weapon. If everything goes well, all they do is rob you and go home and no one dies. You can get your stuff back.
It's a little funny that I'm sitting here wearing a cowboy hat. Everybody wants to be a fucking cowboy, man. Everybody wants to be a cowboy. And ultimately, are you going to die for your TV? Are you going to die for your wallet, for your car, for whatever it is? All this little bullshit that we hold so important. Is that really worth your life? Really?
Be real. Answer that question honestly. Not the Facebook. Oh yes, of course I would, because I'm sorry. This is how I feel. This is how y'all come across to me. Yes, I absolutely would, because my stuff. And you would not, because when it comes down to it, even the hardest people in the Marine Corps still shake when they have to hold that gun up and fire at somebody for their life. Like, let's be real. I'll even admit that I'm on that side too. I can talk a tough game, but we had a series of break-ins in my neighborhood here in Brazil. And there was a note going around on the tree list, and they were like, hey, lock your doors, all that stuff. And the first thing I thought was literally to grab my 8-kilo kettlebell, because I'm like, I can hit somebody with that nonsense. I can't guarantee that I will hit you with the firearm, but I will absolutely knock you out with my kettlebell if I throw it hard enough. It don't matter where it hits you. Like, that was my first thought. My first thought never went to, man, I wish I had a gun. The reality was, how can I protect you within arm's reach? So I always find it so funny when people are like, yes, I absolutely would do this and this. And I'm like, you wouldn't. Like, you wouldn't. It's cool that you think that, but the reality, you wouldn't.
Everybody just
Dunia said that Mexico is a first world country. Do you want to take that, Jesse? You spent time in Mexico. You got family back and forth.
Depends where you're from. Depends where you're at. There's people out there barely making it. Just like here, there's people out there that don't have options. There's people out there that their only option is death.
Now, here's the other thing. I happen to know enough Mexicans to be able to tell you there are Mexicans that are richer than rich Americans.
That's true.
There are people out there in Mexico. I remember one time a family came into a restaurant when I was working in Las Cruces, New Mexico, in university, and a family came in. And my manager was like, holy shit, do you know who they are? And I was like, who are they? He was like, they own all the stuff over there. I was like, what? He was like, all of it. Giant gold belt buckles. It was just nuts. It was nuts. Now, hold on. American Brazilian says something. I think America has the pen and writes the narrative for many other nations, and now things seems to be spilling onto our very own soil. I think America has the pen and writes the narrative for many other nations, and now the ink seems to be spilling.
I mean, as philosophical as that is, I feel like I'm going to need a little bit of explanation before I can say if I agree.
I think you may have strung together some words that might be above me.
I think, we paint this picture of other places, right, and how it's supposed to be in other places because we have it so good here, but at the end of the day, it's every place is unique, and it has its own set of problems and its own set of issues and its own lifestyle. In Mexico, the people that are dirt poor, man, really dirt poor, a lot of them, as much as they want to be out of that situation, they're good with it. My mom's family, where they're from, they had no power and no running water until maybe a couple of years ago. And that's how these people live. Did they care? No. Are they happy? Are they humble and beautiful and amazing people? Hell yeah, they are, man. And they don't care because that shit, it don't matter. It doesn't matter. Ultimately, what do we need? Food, water, a place to sleep, something to keep us warm, and that's it. Everything else, it's all bullshit. Really, when you want to get down to the nitty-gritty, the fundamentals of what we need to live as human beings, as creatures of this planet, that's it, man. Everything else, it's all bullshit.
What can be done to remedy mental illness when it is such a complex issue? Suffering from depression is not the same as schizophrenia, where a person is suffering from delusions and hallucinations. What I don't want to do is have an ugly dog contest where we say, well, this is worse than that, because I think both of those conditions can lead to some horrible things.
Definitely. They skew reality. They skew reality, and even then, reality can be so. It can vary on what you perceive as that. What you perceive as reality. I think that reality can always be shifted, but truth is undeniable. So where do you want to spend your time? Do you want to spend time in this reality that you manufacture, that you perceive in your own head, or do you want to spend your time in these undeniable physical truths of this physical world that we all live in?
I think a simple answer to that is we have to destigmatize mental illness. We have to create resources and make them available so that people who do have issues, someone can get them help before it's too late. I mean, for the record, maybe in severe cases, yes, a person wakes up and they suddenly hear voices and they're suddenly a complete lunatic. Like, sure, that can happen. But the reality is you don't just wake up and a switch flips. I'm not schizophrenic. I don't actually know anybody that is, but I do have experience with when it comes to special needs, mental retardation, when it comes to mental disabilities, things like that, things that progressively get Alzheimer's, dementia, things that are a mental illness.
For the record, for those who don't know, her professional designations allow her to work with people with special needs. She's highly trained, multiple degrees, in working with people who have special needs and mental issues. That's why she can say these things. And for the record, you didn't derail a conversation with Junius. It's fine. That's what we're here for.
So thank you for giving me a little voucher there. I forget that people have no idea who I am, and they have no idea where I come from and why I'm suddenly passionate about certain issues. Mental illness, mental health is something I'm absolutely hardcore passionate about because it's something that we just don't deal with. How do we remedy a situation? We have to study it. We have to know why it's there, what causes it. If we don't know what causes it, how can we begin therapy, whether it's behavioral therapy for autism or Asperger's, or same thing with dementia and Alzheimer's. What do? We remedy those actions. We don't just leave someone out there to rot by themselves until they die or harm themselves or others. We give them the resources they need to function, even if it is in their own reality, in a reality that also involves other people. And by not talking about these things, by not having those resources out there, I mean, if you had a friend that was schizophrenic, would you have any idea what to do for that person?
I'm sure that we might already have them. But here's the thing: they need to pursue it. If we make these things available to everyone, and it should be. I'm not in no way, shape, or form am I saying no. Fuck yeah, the resources need to be there for everyone. Everybody deserves that opportunity to have that peace that they're chasing if they're really feeling that way. But we hide shit, man. People, we're scheming motherfuckers, We hide it. I hid it for a long time for a stupid reason. You know what I mean? But it wasn't until I went and pursued that I started to really take charge of my personal development. You know what I mean? But it's a choice. And how can we force people? We can't force people to pursue this. We can't force people to be at peace. It's one of those things where we just kind of have to accept the reality of this shit place, but this place can be heaven and this place can be hell. And that's just it, man. You just got to be good with it.
See, I absolutely agree with you that we cannot force people to do something. Absolutely. Nor should we. We should not. If someone chooses to live in a world, provided that they're not harming other people, we cannot force them. But something we can do, something we can start doing, is talking about mental illness the same way we would if a child lost a hand at the age of 5. We don't just say, oh, figure it out. I don't know what to do with you. We're like, okay, try writing with this hand. Try it this way. Try it this way. Even as educators in the field of education, we talk about mental illness and disabilities as if it's evil and it's dirty and there's something wrong with you. If we change the attitude towards that in general, more people wouldn't be like, I can't tell anybody because of this, because nobody wants the label. That's the thing. The reason why people with special needs don't get help is they don't want the label, because there's such a stigma around it. There's not, if someone comes to you and says, hey, I can't see out of my left eye, we don't treat it the same way as we do for someone who says, you know, I am not thinking normal thoughts. I saw my child the other day, I don't know, torturing an animal. What do I do? Like, if we started treating it like it's an actual disease, it's an actual illness, it's an actual thing that needs an accommodation, by the time they reach their 30s, they wouldn't have spent 15 years in hell because they didn't know what to do. If those resources, and I'm sorry, I'm not attacking you in any way, shape, or form. I'm just passionate about this. But for real, if we would treat the core of the issue, we would see a decrease in a lot of these things. Mental health in Brazil, for example, therapy is very widely talked about. Mental illness is absolutely talked about here. Everybody I know says that they go to therapy, and
that's not to cut you off, but I remember, like with some of my buddies, this is pre-quarantine. I remember thinking, oh, hey, it's Thursday. You know, there's this new jazz cafe that opened. Let's go down there and grab a coffee. And my buddy, no, I got my therapy tonight, man. My therapist and I got a 60-minute session. And I was like, because in America, you have to have a lot of money to say, you know, I have a private therapist twice a week. Here, it does seem like everybody has a therapist, you know, and it's not anything they're ashamed of. Just hanging out like, oh, no, I gotta go. My therapist is going on holiday, so we got to meet at 12:05 today. And I'm like, oh, cool, you know, like, oh, do you have a good therapist? Let me refer my therapist to you. And it's like everybody is talking to somebody. Now, that could be a class issue. That could be a bubble that we're in. I'm not quite sure, but we're going to find out. Brother Ian said, it's difficult to assign resources with little known about the cause of mental illness, their progression or treatments. Most mentally ill people are not violent. Violent. Most mental people are not violent or purple. Most mass shooters are far more bad than mad. That's what I want to get to. And Ian, you beat me to the punch. When do we make the separation between mentally ill and pure evil?
Yeah.
I mean, we know there's
a difference. I think that as human beings, we're naturally inclined to be good and to do good because it feels good to do that. And I think that when people don't have that, there's clearly an issue, because there are, for a fact, people that derive enormous amounts of pleasure from inflicting misery, not inflicting pain, inflicting misery and suffering. It gets these motherfuckers off to hurt in the most terrible way, and we can never account for that. That's at random, you know. But you hit the nail on the head. If it was cheap, if it was free, if mental health was something that you could get for free, something that we all should have. Why not have this big fucking mental health center? It's like, you're not feeling too good today? You're thinking some crazy shit? Come talk to these motherfuckers over here, man. We're good. And you know what? We're all different colors. We're all different backgrounds. If you can't identify with this person because they're different from you, they come from a different social place, fuck it, man. You know what? I'm here. Let's give the opportunity for people to give their time. I'm happy to sit here and talk and help somebody that's really struggling, that feels that they have nobody to relate to. And that's an issue. It really is, because even me, the therapist that I've been to, I've seen too. The first one that I saw, I could relate to her so good. The second one that I saw, it was hard to connect with him. It was hard to connect with him. He came from money. He had a different life experience than I did. So I told him, I was like, you don't understand what I'm saying, man. You don't see the reality of what I'm saying. You don't see the reality where if somebody needs to go out and rob so they can fucking eat, that doesn't make sense to you because you never had to see that, especially in a place like Mexico. Yeah, you're going to die if you don't have to do what you need to do.
Uh-oh, your volume just went down.
Really weird there at the end.
Huh? So, Raining Woman said, she says, I'm a war veteran who gets treatment for PTSD. And I know that when I mention it sometimes, the stigma is what some people hear first. I don't even understand why treatment for PTSD isn't mandatory for anybody serving in the military. I know so many people that have had to fight to get to see the right clinics and doctors to even, yeah. You know what? While I'm talking about this, I want to show you guys something that I posted. I'm also going to post the link to it. A while back, I did a giant list for people who need any help at all. Yeah, and I made it free for anybody who wants to see it. This is a giant list. Let's see. There. See this? I'm going to show everybody this list. Hold on. There we go. Everything, I mean, these are all free numbers. Actually, let me do this. I'm actually going to go to the top and I'm going to blow the screen up in case somebody doesn't have time to click that link. Just pause the list. You know, when you watch it on the playback. All these are 1-800 numbers where anybody, doesn't matter what your thing is, if you're dealing with anything, I found a number for it that you can call. If you're an expat watching this, you can go through Google phone book, or buy 5 minutes or 10 minutes on any of the international plans that are from VoIP, like even what's it called? Help me out here. What's the one that everybody uses on their phone? Let me see. In any case, there are ways to call these free numbers, even if you're not in the United States. These are here for you. She said, I'm very active in my therapy. Good. Thank you.
Excellent.
Sorry about that, guys.
Thank you, Running Woman, for opening up and saying that someone else is in therapy, that there's nothing wrong with being in therapy and getting treatment for mental health and mental illness. It was brought up in a comment just a little bit ago where he said it was difficult to assign resources. And for the record, I want to say that I agree with everything you said in that comment. It is difficult to assign resources because we don't know enough about them. Unfortunately, it's very difficult to learn about something, its progression, what's effective and what's not effective, when people are afraid to admit that they have an issue because of the stigma that comes around it. So I don't disagree with anything that was said in that comment, but I still maintain that the only way to get better is to start getting better, is to start addressing it for what it is and not being afraid and making an environment where people aren't afraid to say that they have mental health and mental illness. But the bad versus mad thing, I don't disagree at all. While I was sitting there thinking I was going to disagree, and then I'm like, no, because what he said was not inaccurate. I'm trying to diverge into criminal behavior versus mass shootings. They are connected, but they are not one and the same. So everything he said in that comment, I want to say that I do agree with. I agree with everything he said. But the only way to get better is to start taking the steps towards making better. Making better? Getting better. Sorry, I speak multiple languages. What do you want from me?
It's good. It's good that you say that too, because that's really what's going to address the problem. I mean, a few years ago, we had a woman that ran down a bunch of people on the strip right here in Las Vegas. And later on, she came to say, like, why? Why did you do it? And she's like, I was feeling so bad. And I seen these people having such a good time out there. And I just wanted them to hurt just as much as me. And I fucking ran them down. You know what I mean? And that's the issue that we really need to tackle. And I fucking ran them down. You know what I mean? And that's that hurt you.
Who's playing YouTube? It's not me.
And that's
someone has a YouTube channel open.
Hold on, somebody is looping on YouTube.
That hurt you. Someone has a YouTube channel. You know what I mean? And that's that hurt you. Someone has a YouTube channel. You know what I mean? And that's
hold on, something's wrong.
You know what I mean?
I'm gonna reload my page.
Okay.
I was in charge while I'm gone. I have no idea what just happened.
Oh, yikes. Oh no.
You know what I mean?
All right. It's got to be, yeah, it's got to be, it had to have been him. I bet he had his YouTube open because if he's reading the comments at the same time, it'll make that sound loop. So someone forgot to turn on their mic. You are muted, Jesse. Oh, he's refreshing too. All right, I'm alone. Ah, that's scary. I'm reading the comments here while I'm waiting for other people to join me. This is awkward. I don't even know if I can. Anyway, how are y'all doing? Necessary discussion. The mental health aspect is so important. I agree, Craig. Thank you so much for the comment. BK from the Rockies, while I am totally waiting for them, are you and your family okay? We were discussing you earlier and I wanted to reach out and check in if you can still hear me. You know, hopefully you are doing well. Yeah, so let's see. PTSD treatment and therapy absolutely should be mandatory for veterans. It can make a huge difference in reintegrating as a civilian. Absolutely. I have family that's in the military and they talk often about how difficult it is to leave the military and reintegrate back into civilian life. So I agree that it should be mandatory. Ooh, I'd also like to know about branches of the military. Craig, you're awesome. Thank you for keeping it up in the comments. Jesse says he's here. I don't see him. Reading the comments here on YouTube. Interesting. People need to be active in the comments. An Army veteran. Rainy Woman, thank you so much for your service. I want to make sure that I put that out there too. I have the utmost respect for anyone who has served. So thank you very much for your service. Question, what's the connection between mass shooting versus mental health? I'll address this while we're waiting for people to come back. The connection between mass shooting versus mental health. Why does someone commit a mass shooting? That's kind of where that comment initiated or where that conversation initiated. People who do that, horrible people that do that, often have issues that relate back to mental health. Having poor mental health and not having the access to resources. Everybody? No. But on average, you have to be mentally ill, whether you're mentally evil or mentally ill. That is where the connection between mass shooting versus mental health is. Yay! People are back.
Hey, I'm seeing American Brazilians comment here, and it's interesting that you say that. While I was going through therapy, my therapist had told me that I was showing symptoms of PTSD just from the way that I was raised and things that I was experiencing. And there's a lot of truth to that because, you know what? Being Chicano, being Latino, being whatever you want to call me, you know, it is seen as a little bit of, you know, you're a little bitch. You know, are you going to be a man or are you going to be a little bitch? So there is a stigma there, but let's not deny the reality of when people experience atrocities. I don't think that ever gets thrown in that way of weakness. When it's something that's really, really bad, you know. But even then, we're all human beings, and we all take in what we experience differently, and it means different things to different people. So that's just the problem, man. It's not just a way of making it seem like, hey, you know, oh, you know what? It's not about just toughening up or doing it this way. It's understanding, did this experience really warp your perspective of what's okay and what's acceptable in our society, and what's acceptable just for being a good person, you know, because it does warp your view. If you grow up watching your dad beat the shit out of your mother, you know, there's going to be a certain feeling where you feel like it's inherently wrong. But if you're taught something different, that's the way that you're going to see the world, and that's going to be the truth to you, which is you know, it's a scary thing.
Good evening, Craig, and thank you for dropping in. We also had a great comment by Reigning Woman saying PTSD treatment and therapy absolutely should be mandatory for veterans. It can make a huge difference in reintegrating as a civilian because the military is its own community. I got a lot of friends that have been in the military, and I can tell you, for better or for worse, the military changes you in a way that you can't unchange from unless you have help, because there's a lot of effort going into changing you. Slightly unrelated, Ian had a quick question for you, Al.
Yes, I was reading that. And the answer to that question is I speak 4 if you include kindergartner.
Did you say?
Thank you for laughing. Thank you, Jesse. Nobody laughed. No, if you're looking at the decorations on my wall behind me, I teach kindergarten, but I speak 3 languages.
Wow. Ian said Brazil is a far more religious side in the state. Does this appreciably affect the perception of judgment of the mental illness there? I don't think so, but I'm not a native Brazilian. I'm also an atheist, so I don't see that connection.
I would also point out that I also live in Brazil. Yes, Brazil is religious, as in, you know, it's a Catholic nation. But in reality, I would say that religion does not impact my life that way, with the exception of we get a lot of holidays, and that's awesome. But I don't think that in the same way that living in the Middle East, religion was a part of my everyday life. Whereas here, yes, we are religious, but it doesn't impact my daily life that way. So I don't know why it would. I mean, it might, maybe, I'm not sure, but I don't see it that way. Because honestly, it's a more, yes, we are Catholic, but I would say that we're more an atheist.
In Brazil, they're not really trying to shove it up your nose.
Right.
Yeah.
They're not trying to shove it up your nose. That's a good way to put it.
And even then, for anybody that is a hardcore Catholic, I was brought up Catholic, baptized Catholic, and my parents and family are still very devout Catholics, and I don't think it's never a stigma. All it is when people are aware of that, they just want to help and they pray for you, and it's a place of help and understanding. I think that religions can be a very helpful thing, and they can give people a lot of comfort. I don't think that they vilify mental illness or shit on it in any kind of way. They're just more interested in making sure you're all right.
As far as the question from earlier about religion, you know, for those who don't know or you might need that, I'll put that there. And I did a video that you guys may want to check out called Godless Heathen Protection Services.
Clever name.
So I'll show you the tab for it in case you guys need to find it there. And by the way, for the record, Reigning Woman loved the kindergarten response. You know, you got a little bit of ha-has going.
Yay! People think I'm funny. That's important.
That was a good one.
And she had she said, I had a long, exhausting fight to get my PTSD acknowledged as a disability. Like, why would they pretend you didn't have it if they know your service record? That's the thing. What are they going to say? We don't believe you saw anything that could cause you stress. Really?
It's not that they don't believe it. The thing is, they do believe it. But I'm sorry, I hate to speak on behalf of her, but in my experience with mental health and having a disability, people who have to pay for it, particularly governments, would much rather pretend that you don't actually need help, that you're able to just deal with it. Like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. It's not that they don't believe you have the issue. It's that they don't want to pay for it. So they'd rather pretend that you're exaggerating it than actually coming through and saying, oh, this human needs to function in society, and taking care of it, if that makes any sense. Liability. Yes, I agree. You have to admit that you're responsible for something if you take the responsibility for it. So yes, liability.
No, it's interesting. I was listening to an interview with Mike Tyson, and he said that he was trained to be a almost like a vicious animal, but they never trained them not to be one. It's hard to turn off.
Yeah. Craig says he's an Air Force veteran returning. Women in mental health services were mandatory for returning from deployments. It's one of the few things the Air Force did right. Interesting that different branches handle it differently.
That doesn't surprise me at all, actually.
Really?
No, it's good. It's good that they but you know what? The Air Force does quite a few things differently, and their mantra is a little bit different than some of the other branches as well. At least from what I've seen, in movies and media and stuff. What was it? It was like work smarter, not harder, or something like that. I was watching a Forged in Fire show, and it was a veteran special, so they had everybody from the different branches on, and they're all kind of talking about their thing, and that was one of the things that reminded me of with the Air Force.
Wow. Liability. You said people are expendable. An American Brazilian said, I'm ex-military and I saw it happen often. Wow.
You know, you're no longer a person. You're just a tool. You're a number on a board, and they make you do what they want.
It's just such a grim outlook in life to see these things. Listen, I don't know that. Okay, what did it say? Ian said it's to the military disadvantage to acknowledge PTSD in vets. Publicizing it as a common side effect of battle might deter recruitment. Okay.
Absolutely. If we admit that we may send you off worse than you came in, why would you ever want to join?
Well, I think they would only really attract a certain kind of person, and that's the person that wants to be able to kill legally.
If that was the case, wow.
Yeah.
Well, like I said early in the stream, my answer has always been leave the United States if the violence there, the nonsensical violence is too much. And I think for a lot of us, it's too much and should consider leaving. For a lot of people who don't know, one of the businesses that I run and have been running successfully is expat relocation services. And if anybody wants to add me on LinkedIn, I tell everyone that they can look at my resume and that's fine. But my resume isn't really the highlight. This talks about what I do and helping people get their information for Brazil. But the highlight is at the bottom is when you go to the part where it says, come on, there we go, recommendations. This is where other business professionals have said that I'm who I claim to be and I'm worth every penny. This is when they talk about my ability to do my job and do my job well, especially in the expat business of helping people get to Brazil legally. And I'm here for anybody who needs that. On that note, I want to start to wrap it up. It's getting a little late here. It's a little earlier there. I want to say thank you to both of you for showing up. As a matter of fact, when I say goodbye to the team, I want you two to stick around for a minute. And let's see, we got one last question. Uh-oh, here we go.
I was going to say, are you really want to open that can of worms? Because I saw it.
You think the current administration will do anything about gun reform?
I don't think so.
I think they'll try.
I don't think it's going to happen.
I think they will try. And I think the same thing that has happened in the past, they'll try and it will fail. What they're going to do, I have no idea. But will something come up about gun reform? Absolutely. It always does when there's a series of mass shootings. Will it go through? Probably not, because that's also the cycle that happens with mass shootings, unfortunately. I think they will try. Whether it'll be good, bad, or indifferent, I don't have an opinion on that, but I think they will try.
That's a whole different conversation. I hope that we only have to have these conversations about such grim topics as often as necessary, and I hope that they become not necessary at all very, very soon. I want to thank everybody for their time tonight. And no matter when you're watching this, be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and share it on Facebook and share it on, Twitter. This is how we grow. To be able to have this. And on that note, I hope everybody has a good night, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye, everybody.